Hey guys, Jack's your free auto mechanic. We're working on our 2000 Jeep Wrangler today. Specifically, we're going to be doing the frame rail repair on the back quarter. We're also going to be replacing the control arms, the upper and lower, along with the bushings. Now, it is important to remember to do one side at a time. That'll keep the whole rear end from shooting out from underneath of you. But yeah, you still have a drive shaft attached, but it will slide. We've already got it on jack stands, the wheels off of it. In a previous video, I showed you how to replace the sway bar links. I've already removed this sway bar link. If you need to know how, check out the video for sway bar link removal. And if you have an exhaust tailpipe from the factory, there's a tailpipe bracket on the back side. You'll need to remove that. The bolts will come right out, 13 millimeter. Take that off. If you find that your exhaust system is in the way, go ahead and remove it. We're going to remove the upper and lower control arm. And you want to remove the upper control arm first. It just makes it easier. There's less tension on the bolts. So you go ahead and remove the upper control arm. We'll start with the bolt right on the back side of this frame rail. Upper control arm bolts are 15. On the back side, all three bolts are 15s. And then on our lower control arm, these are all 13/16 is what I found fit pretty good. So we got our upper control arm loose. As you can see, our park brake cable still attached. Now there is a 13 millimeter nut on the back side. And if you're lucky, you could get that loose. Spray a little bit of penetrating oil or something. I like PB Blaster. You can get some on there. Let it soak a little bit. Now, since I know that we're going to have to reuse this bracket, you can try and take the nut loose from here. Odds are you're not going to be able to get it to come loose. I tried on the other side and ended up having to take it apart. So what I'm going to do, this is open right here. I'm just going to put a pry bar in here and just pry it open so I can pop the brake line loose. Now it's probably easier to do if you had it, if it's still bolted up. Maybe not. That's up to you. If you want to try and take this loose with an impact real quick, see if it works for you. That might save you a bit of time there. And we'll see what happens. Alright, so the objective is to get the park brake cable out of this bracket here. And I'm just going to try and bend it with these channel locks. Just bend it open a little bit. Not the easiest, but we're able to get it off of there. You can see I did try with the socket and just rounded off the nut. So I'll have to put it on the bench, heat that up with a torch, beat a socket onto it, and break it loose. in order to reuse this bracket on our new upper control arm. Time you get it off and get it cleaned up, it'll look something like this. Next, we're going to take the lower control arm loose, 13/16 on both ends of the bolts. Once you get your bolt out, you're going to want to hang on to that bolt and that nut because you're going to need to reuse them. Put our nut back on, and you want to put it, most of it's flush with the bolt and the nut, and you can slightly tap it to get it loose. Sometimes just loosening this up helps. It's kind of just about out. Almost get it out. A little bit of persuasion. We've got our control arms out of the way. Gives us nice full access to our frame. You can see I've got my jack stand sitting here. It's just on this body mount bolt. Now you can set it on the rest of your frame up front, but you can see this frame is pretty shot. So I've got an additional frame rail piece. I'm going to be welding the full length here, as well as taking care of this corner panel, or corner frame, rear corner frame. I'm not sure what exactly you call it, but I'm going to do this one first, and then we'll do the other side. I'm cleaning all this rust out of there because it makes it easier for it to come apart when I start cutting on it. Amazingly, these will stay in good shape on the top. They don't tend to rust out up and through here. So we'll end up cutting it here all the way down to this bracket part here. You end up using the body mount. But the next step is to remove this plastic piece. Take that out so you can get to the top part of this rail when you do your welding. And there's a special tool for taking those out if you don't want to try and fight it with a screwdriver. You work that under there and pops it right out. Do the same with the rest of them. Now, we've got everything out of the way. We can kind of eyeball where this is going to sit based on everything. That's how I got my line right here. And you're going to leave some metal because you want to be able to weld around this. So we're only going to cut up, we're going to leave about a 1/2 inch or so. And you can leave pretty much as you want up above it, because this will slide right over top of it. And it's going to want to go up flush to where you still measure that 4 inch. Once you've decided what you're going to do, there's a couple of different ways or both that you can go about this. I've seen some people use cutting torch. I've used cutting torches plenty. They work great. You just cut right around there and you're good. And you still have an option. You can get a Sawzall. But if you're going to do that, you want to get some of these really good blades. These are carbide teeth. They'll be able to cut through this frame without any problem at all. You probably won't need to use more than one blade. I got a 3-pack. They come that way. They make longer ones, they make shorter ones. I suggest using the longer ones. It just gives you a little bit more control of what you're trying to do. So I'm going to start with the Sawzall. I've got this Diablo carbide teethed or toothed. I'm not sure how you say that. But carbide blade. And I'm just going to get it to where I can cut along here. I'm just going to take this angle up to this point and then cut it straight up. And there is a bracket on the back side. We're not going to worry about it because this blade should cut through all of it. Safety protection. If you're going to wear eyeglasses, I guess I should get mine. Let's see how she does here. So I was cutting from the front and I noticed from the back side I need to still yet remove the exhaust bracket. That's two 13mm bolts. They should just come loose, no problem. Then we can finish cutting that with the Sawzall. As you can see, the Diablo Sawzall blade did the trick. So, proofs in the pudding, the blade works pretty well. If you don't have a set of cutting torches, you can use the Sawzall blade. I cut that notch out, and then I'm going to cut back along here. Start back cutting. There's a bracket on the back side. If you can stay above it, great. If not, this blade will cut right through it and everything else you put in its way. You can see it just keep cutting all the way down. You can see I cut some away, and some of it's still attached back in here. So I just bent this out of the way using a pry bar. Now when we get down into this area here, if yours has any existing metal around this bracket, we want to go ahead and leave that. This one's rusted out pretty good because we are going to need to weld this brace onto the other plate. If there's no metal there, we can add a piece of metal and then weld that all in so that it's solid and there's no holes for water to get back in and rust again. once you get the bulk of it removed, you can trim off the back side, and then we'll start taking our grinder around the edges where we're going to be putting our welds. I already know that it's not quite ready, but set it up there. Get an idea of what still needs to be trimmed off for you to be able to get this all the way up flush. All right, for this next part, we've got our frame rail cut out. Next, we're going to need a grinder. I picked up this Craftsman. It's a 6 amp. It's got a 3-year warranty, and it comes with a grinding wheel, A+. It does work pretty well. It's got a handle that you can move onto the back side or on the side. It's got a locked on, which is very handy. So you got hands free. So you got both hands free to be able to do what you need to, and that's hold on to this thing. All right, safety glasses I recommend. We'll just need to dress this all up so that we can make sure that our repair piece fits, and we want to make sure we grind out far enough so that it's prepped for our welding. And for those spots like up in here that your grinder just won't quite get into, you get a wire brush on the end of a drill. You can push up in there and get to the little nooks and crannies. You want to do another test fit, make sure everything's lined up good. You're looking for a nice snug fit, and you can see you got plenty of metal to run your bead around. I'm going to weld it pretty much all the way around this side and along the top, and then on the back side as well. And then you can see I was talking about before, there's a little gap right here. I took an old hoe blade, cut it down to size, and then I'll take this and I'll just slip it in behind it, position it in the right spot, and then I'll weld it up. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back off. I'll take my wire brush to the outside of this where I want to weld, and then we'll set it back up in there and get her welded in place. I've got my metal plate stuck back in here. I'm going to hold it up in place if I can. And I'm just going to tack it into place for now. Then I can quit holding it and I can get my helmet on. And then I'm just going to go ahead and weld that in. So now we got it set in place. Get your welder ready. You can tack it in place, and you could probably MIG weld this if you wanted to. But again, you're just holding it to it. But I'm going to go ahead and use an arc welder, weld it into place. I don't pretend that I'm a good welder, but I know when the two pieces of metal melt together that they're not moving. So you can do that on a few places around on it. And what I'm going to do is I'll weld the rest of this. I'll weld along the top side here, and then I'll go around on the back side and weld it. Once you've got it welded in place to your satisfaction, we can start putting it back together. I think it's a good idea to cover all your welds with a fresh coat of paint. Doesn't really matter what kind you use. I chose the Rust-Oleum. Anything you got laying around is better than just leaving it bare metal, because it will start to rust pretty quick. So for us to be able to install our lower control arm and upper control arm, we're going to get them started so that they're sitting in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this come along in a strap. I'm just going to wrap the strap around the axle shaft and run the come along from the strap up to the front, right where the lower control arm attaches on the front. You want to make sure that you install the upper with your bracket on the inside for your brake cable. You can install the bracket ahead of time or afterwards. I like to clean my bolts up a little bit. You don't have to. You want to make sure that you go underneath the brake lines, because you don't want to be pulling on the brake lines. That's just something you don't want to do. I did jack it up, and I will remove this jack stand so that it's not in the way. And I'll just start pulling this forward. So you want to start the upper one first. Right. Let it back out a little bit. Once you get it lined up in there, you use your wing nut, kind of, I don't know what you call that. And you just need to get it started. So my strap broke. So either use a chain or a stronger strap, maybe. So I went ahead and replace my strap. We'll see if we can't get it to line back up for us. Looks pretty close. I like it. At this point, we can take the pressure off of our come along and remove it. So all in all, the repair turned out pretty good. The frame looks completely 100% better. Now we've got our control arms installed. The repair is complete. We can go ahead and assemble everything back the way that we took it off. You can check out my other videos. I do show you where I do the sway bar links on the rear or front if you need them. Thanks for hanging out and watching this repair. The next step in the project is going to be doing the center section of the frame. We'll get that welded in. If you need to check out how to put in the rear sway bar links, here's a video for that. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Any likes or comments are all appreciated. Thanks again.